Good to see everyone again. For those of you I've met and have not met, as Sarah said, I am Sean, the co-founder of Pacific IQ. We're a Shopify premier partner. We work with some of the biggest brands on the Shopify ecosystem to help drive sales and net profit, ideally net profit over sales, but depends where you are in your life cycle. And today I'm going to talk to you about the framework that we use to help brands grow, because there's no silver bullet out there to get to your goals these days. It's as competitive as it has ever been. And brands always like to start with paid media as their dial to turn on to increase revenue. But that is the last thing you should be looking at. It is the last thing. There are some things to look at before that. So what we want to think about here is, what are our goals for 2026? You've probably been given a number by your CFO, the CEO, that you need to hit for the year, and it's up to you to go and work out where you're going to get these gains. So this is a framework to use to help you try and unlock where that money is actually going to come from. So unless you have that plan today, this is a methodology that you can run yourself, which I'm going to give you the cheat sheet for later. This is a framework that we usually charge for as an agency, but today you have a QR code. You can download our cheat sheet and jump straight into what we use as an agency to bring brands forward. Now, who here is guilty of saying this to their agency or their paid media buyer? Probably everyone. I need a better return on ad spend. Cool, yep, no worries. Heard that from every single brand in the universe. The best way to achieve that is by not touching your ads. You do that last. You need to optimize the system that lives beneath your ads, i.e. your website, to get those results. So this is how we do it. We focus on conversion rate, AOV, and LTV before the traffic, okay? Which is the opposite way that most brands think about this problem. These are the results from the brands that went through this system in 2025. So we did about 35 brands that we assisted across multiple categories. These numbers speak for themselves. So you've got a 19% conversion rate as an average, and these numbers equal real dollars at the end of the day, is the main thing that we need to get across here. So there's not going to be one single thing that you need to change today in your business. There's going to be multiple things. And the trick here is to identify what those things are so that you can then create the plan to go and fix them, so that then you can dial up your ad spend. But make sure you do it in that order. So it comes down to these 8 pillars, right? These are the 8 things that we want to look at and assess in your business to work out where the constraints are, to work out how we're going to increase revenue, okay? Now, this is simplified. There'd probably be 50 pillars if it was up to me, but our team's got to condense everything. So they run, brand authority, down to tech stack, down to international expansion. These are all really, really important. Now, the big one is brand. Most e-com brands focus too much on product and not enough on brand, especially if you're in a crowded industry. You're selling something like protein powder or, water or things like that. Brand's going to be the thing that allows you to get that conversion over a more generic brand that's probably doing Amazon FBA or things like that. So you need to measure that and understand where you sit in the market to identify how much investment you need to put into getting your brand awareness up. Now, here is the big one. 10 years ago, you could almost sell anything online with Facebook ads. It didn't really matter what it was. You'd spin up a website, you'd throw some ads at it, and you'd start selling things. That is not the case today. You need a unique product or a novel product. And if you do not have a novel product, you're going to face a lot more competition if you're selling something that's generic. So leaning into product strategy is one of the biggest levers that we see to be able to increase revenue. And that takes 2 forms. The first one is complementary products to what you sell already. So if you've already got a customer base that's buying protein powder, it's much easier to introduce a secondary product, so say some sort of hydration, than it is to acquire more new customers to sell protein to. It's always cheaper from a marketing perspective to sell more things to the same customer than it is to acquire a new customer. And likewise, when it comes to pricing your products, often, you have a sales goal or even a net profit goal as a business. The easiest way for some brands is to re-look at your pricing, squeeze suppliers or squeeze your production line to get more margin out of the existing retail price. And in a lot of cases, increase the retail price, because you may not have done that for 3 to 4 years and customers are expecting that. So price increase, while it's a very unsexy, controversial thing to say, can actually help drive and hit your goals without doing much else. Now, acquisition. Most brands are completely dominated by one channel. They're reliant on it. And what often happens is brands get it working, and for a lot of brands right now, it's TikTok Shop, it's pumping, smashing goals, getting crazy return on ad spend, and you go, cool, job done, I'm out. This is working. I'm just going to go on autopilot because I've got this thing dialed, which is the complete wrong way to think about it. You need to move on to the next channel so that you're not dependent on one. So you need diversification across how you're acquiring customers, and that job is never finished. The e-com world's evolving. You need to continue to evolve the way that you think about acquiring customers and never sit still is the point here. This job is never done. Now, conversion rate, and this is something that I keep banging on about. If you want a better return on ad spend, forget the ads, focus on conversion rate. That'll increase your return on ad spend more than improving your Meta account ever will. So small increases in conversion result to massive gains in revenue and, more importantly, massive gains from paid media. Now, retention is an interesting topic. So LTV is the number here that we're trying to move. And the way to think about this versus like just net revenue that you bank, think about this as your growth fund. Because if you can prove out that every customer is now worth $300 a year and not $200 a year, you can now afford to spend a lot more on acquiring that customer, which allows you to go much, much wider with how you acquire customers. So think of this as your piggy bank for acquisition. The better you can get the LTV up, the more money you can spend on acquisition. Now, ops. This is a really unsexy, boring topic that most brands really do not pay attention to, but it's really important when you get to scale. You need to be shipping things same day if the order's in before, say, noon PST. You need to make sure it's delivered in a box that looks nice, it's not crumpled, the product's not damaged. All these things matter. Make sure returns are easy. These are just basics. Go down a checklist, make sure you do all these things at a 10 out of 10 level. If you're not, it's going to affect your LTV because customers will not come back if they have a poor experience with your brand when it finally arrives at their doorstep. Now, tech and data, this is the most, I would say, quick win you can get out there. And while, I'm on the Rebuy stage, obviously, tech matters, and Rebuy is the quickest win you can get as a brand if you're not currently using it. Plug it in, turn it on, within 3 or 4 days, you will see instant results. And this compounds out to other tech decisions in the business. Sometimes marketing is about tech choice just as much as it is about marketing decisions. So make sure your tech stack performs for you and is hitting your objectives for what your brand is looking to do. Finally, international. Something that's massively overlooked for DTC brands is, okay, more revenue. We've talked about better acquisition, better conversion rate, longer LTV, all these things. Sometimes entering a new market is the surprisingly easy way to turn on the tap of new revenue. Shopify has amazing tools built in to support this. There are people like Global E out there that will allow you to send things, DDP out to the market so it's easy for the customer. Test each market separately. So set up this storefront, let's say for the UK, run ads locally in the UK, change the language, and see what works for you. And eventually, if you get it really pumping, you need to get product into those countries so you can ship same day in those markets. Now, how do you work out how to actually do all this stuff? Now, this is our cheat sheet that we're giving away today that allows brands to identify where these constraints are in a really logical checklist type system. So this will allow you to go through, score all those 8 pillars, and ultimately what you'll end up with is a graph that looks like this. So you've got those 8 pillars of conversion through technology. This will allow you to identify where the gaps are, and then you can focus your time on planning on how you're going to plug those gaps. And this is the way that we as an agency work for the brands that come to us needing help. So this is the fundamental outcome here, that this does not happen by accident. You need to be really intentional about where you put your time and how you go about growth, and having a framework to do that is the absolute best way you can get there. Any questions from anyone sitting here today? Excellent. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.